TCI is brought to you by Northern Afleet, standing at TaylorMade Stallions, sire of 5 millionaires and 6 Grade 1 winners. Find out more at northernafleet.com.
Welcome back to TCI, your inside track to the Triple Crown. I'm John Siegel alongside Joel Cunningham. You know, this is our last installment of TCI for the Triple Crown season. Joel will transition now and talk about Breeders' Cup for the second half of the year. But first, let's talk about Union Rags, your Belmont Stakes winner. You know, in the panel show, we said Union Rags was the dark horse, that he had the biggest question mark because he ran so bad in the Florida Derby because of bad racing luck. And then again in the Derby, Joel, rider change, the horse looked great. I thought Union Rags was very impressive.
I think the rider change was important. And you know what? I kind of felt that way coming in. A lot of people wanted to say, well, this horse just simply hasn't gotten better from 2 to 3. But let's look back to April. You know, if he threw out his Florida Derby and the rough trip he got that day, this horse was still the favorite for the Kentucky Derby, John.
Right.
Most people, including myself, thought he was the best 3-year-old in the country based on his potential and his past accomplishments. And he was 8-1 to win the Triple Crown by some future betting odds, you know, in April. Well, fast forward now. Bad trip in the Derby. Now, a lot of people thought he might have been 8-1 in the Belmont if I'll Have Another had run. He winds up taking a lot of money in here with the unfortunate scratch of I'll Have Another. And John, I really just think with that aggressive rider change, John Velazquez fitting this type of horse. I mean, he's a laid-back colt. He has a huge stride, but he does things under rider's command. He doesn't do things as naturally willingly, John. And I just think that he needs that constant encouragement to be aggressive and stay in the race. He doesn't have quick acceleration. He's a horse that's just strong and just has that steady progression, John, and you really have to ride him hard.
Right.
John Velazquez showed a lot more speed with this horse. I mean, he was you know, mid-pack and good striking range throughout. And I know the fractions were slower because it was 1.5 miles, but I really think that was a key rider move up. And for that horse to show some determination in the stretch, that's something we didn't see as a 2-year-old.
Well, we saw him break out of the gate. You know, it's really where he's run into a lot of problems. You can see in the photo here, he breaks out of the gate, and the horse to his inside does come over, but Johnny V just presses him on and gets him out of trouble. I thought that was a key move right there. Like you said, got him up in the race early. But
right.
Joel, you mentioned that he took a lot of money because I'll Have Another scratches out. I think he took a lot of money because the horse looked fantastic, and I mean, he was training great and looked great on race day.
You know, I almost didn't know what to make of him because we saw him coming through the tunnel, and he wasn't typical Union Rags. You know, Union Rags usually gets a little lathered up, a little hot, and a little worked up, a little spirited in a post-breed, John.
Right.
This horse was cool as a cucumber. He looked, I mean, he always looks fantastic physically, but in terms of his temperament and the way he was handling the situation, I mean, he looked like the picture of what you wanted to see. So I was almost concerned, wondering, okay, this is the Union Rags we're used to seeing here. And you know what? He got really hot on Thursday training, but on Friday, he was his last move before Belmont Stakes Day, cool as a cucumber. I mean, didn't turn a hair, got over the track as well as anybody. I mean, it was a deep surface, a laboring surface. He trained as well as anybody on it, and the results proved true on Saturday.
Well, it's worth mentioning, you say how good that Union Rags looked. Painter was also cool as a cucumber, like you mentioned. You know, Baffert did a great job. This is a horse that can be known for being a little tough mentally. They had him settled. I thought those two horses looked the best in the post parade.
You know, I did too. Painter had a little kidney sweat, but if you watch most of the horses throughout the day, it was a hot day. A lot of those horses, you know, were reacting to the weather to some degree, but Painter handled the situation fantastically. A horse that did not was Doulahan, John, one of your favorites in the race. I mean, he was really keyed up. We saw him, you know, in the paddock and in the post-parade and coming through the tunnel there. He was very keyed up. It wasn't vintage Doulahan, and I almost got well, from a betting standpoint for me, I got a better feeling about him because I was always betting against him. I just didn't like what I was seeing physically from him. And again, when I look at Doulahan, the reason I didn't like him in this race, John, is I think at 12 furlongs, dosage matters so much. The ability to handle 12 furlongs. None of these horses are going to excel at it, but the horses that can handle the distance and grind it out late, you know, I mean, look, they came home slow, but the horses that grounded out late were the ones with the best pedigrees to handle that true marathon distance. Doulahan was not one of those coming in.
All right, let's hit it head on. You're hearing all the rumors now. If I'll Have Another would have been in the race, he would have won by 10. I mean, everybody's saying that he was much faster than these horses.
Right.
What do you think of that?
You know, I think that's a lot of people, a lot of wishful thinking. I mean, we wanted to see him run so bad. And boy, I tell you, when that news hit and we were in New York, I was almost in disbelief. I mean, I almost thought I was dreaming. I mean, it was such a nightmare to really catch that news there. He was the main event. That's what everybody was waiting to see, is if this horse could finally break history, John. So really a big blow for that to happen. But you know what? I don't think I'll Have Another necessarily was going to run away with this race. A lot of people say, oh, they came home the last quarter in 26 seconds. You know, Painter had it all his way. Union Rags saved all the ground and barely won. It was a slow time, slow speed figure. Look at the recent results of the Belmont Stakes.
Right.
It's a 1.5 mile race, John. Like I said, breeding. These horses are bred to excel at 9 furlongs, maybe 10, not 12. They hang on at 12 furlongs. I am not convinced I'll Have Another was going to finish any faster than these horses, you know, particularly with Painter. The way he fired on the front end, I think he was going to give I'll Have Another enough tussle. It may have really increased the pace, set it up for horses like Street Life and Union Rags from coming off of it. So, again, I'm not guaranteeing I'll Have Another would have won this race. Now, if he would have fired his best shot and handled the distance, yes, conventional thought is he would have won. But
right.
I think Painter would have been a tough customer for him on the front end.
Well, Joel, it was unfortunate we didn't get to see that matchup. You know, you see here in the photo, this is I'll Have Another's retirement ceremony in the winner's circle. Really want to commend Team I'll Have Another. Doug O'Neill, Paul Redham, they showed a lot of class in a difficult situation. But I also want to commend Naira and the New York racing fans. Yeah. I really thought that the Belmont would be a disappointment after I'll Have Another scratched, but Joel, the fans showed up and they were into the Belmont.
Still tremendous handle and still tremendous support. About 85,000 fans there, John. So that was great to see. And you know what? With the news coming, you know, only a couple days away from the Belmont Stakes, people had their tickets purchased, their accommodations and plans made at that point. They were coming. So I really thought it was great, a great show of sportsmanship by Team O'Neill and Redham, along with Naira, to put that together and make a bad situation a good one as best as they could make it.
Right.
In terms of, you know, showing the horse off. They did what was healthy and right for the horse. They didn't put him in the post parade like they originally thought they would. They instead just brought him to the winner's circle, gave him a champion's, you know, tribute,
right.
Sent him off in the right way. The horse probably just thought he was schooling. So I thought it was great for them to be able to show the fans and even the national fans on TV, you know, the horse one last time because he was the main attraction coming in.
Well, you mentioned sportsmanship. You got to say Zayat Stables. Wow, what sportsmanship they've shown. You know,
right.
they have run second in all 3 legs of the Triple Crown. Yeah, it was with 2 different horses, but Joel, talk about a tough situation. They've shown a lot of class through this whole Triple Crown.
Well, John, you want to talk about disappointment? I mean, you have 2 horses. Not like these were long shots. These are 2 high-quality colts. And imagine how many calls there are in the Belmont Derby and Preakness. I mean,
right.
There were 6 calls from the first quarter mile to the wire, you know, just in the Belmont Stakes. They led every call of all 3 classics except the 3 that were most important, the winning call. You know, lose by, everybody knows, less than 2 lengths between the 3 of them combined. So very disappointing. You know, it had to have been for them to turn for home in these classics and, you know, feel that feeling like, okay, my horse is going to get it done, and to come up just short there, John. But I have good news for them. Bodemeister and Painter are lightly raced, and they're
right.
not going anywhere.
Right.
Both these colts are brilliant. You know, look at Painter. He came home in 26 seconds, but he's a lightly raced colt, and he's not bred to go 1.5 miles. None of these are. We talked about that. Wait until they go 9 or 10 furlongs. He gets a little more seasoning, John. Painter and Bodemeister are going to be bears the second half of the season. I really think they're going to lead this crop, especially against the older horses and our big-time Breeders' Cup Classic contenders.
All right, well, that's a great transition into what TCI will now become. Joel, it'll be your inside track to the Breeders' Cup.
That's right.
You know, we'll now move into the second half of the year, and let's start that off by talking about the TCI top 5 3-year-olds in the country right now. Tell me, who do you got?
When the good thing is we're going to cover a lot of divisions, you know, as we go in the next 6 months, John, 5 months leading up to the Breeders' Cup. But let's look at the top 3-year-olds post-Triple Crown right now. In my opinion, based on the ones that are healthy moving forward, again, Bodemeister and Painter, 1-2 for me up there, John. I'm going to put Union Rags, you know, fulfilling his promise finally in the Belmont. I'm putting him back in that 3 spot for me. I just like the brilliance and the speed of,
right.
of the first and the second horses more so than Union Rags. Triniberg, you know, I know he's just a sprinter, John,
right.
but wow, this colt looked so impressive, I thought, the other day. He just runs horses off their feet, and he looked physically impressive. Through the Derby grind, I mean, he looked fantastic. So I got to have him in there at number 4, and I'll put Doulahan in for 5 now. But, you know, Gemologist, Creative Cause, we have a lot of horses that, you know, are on the comeback that could prove that, you know, they're worthy as well.
All right, thank you, Joel. It's been a great Triple Crown. You know, like
awesome,
we said,
man.
we'd see history, and we did.
This is a good group. We saw a great group. We didn't see a Triple Crown winner, but we saw a fantastic group, and I just think it's a prelude to things to come later on this year.
All right, thank you guys for watching us through the Triple Crown. Make sure you come back on Thursday's show. We're going to talk about the older horses. That's right, the Stephen Foster this weekend.